The Codependent Empath. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. With the categorization of schools of the empath, I divide them into 4: standard, codependent, super, and contagion. Here, I provide you with some more information about the codependent. A codependent empath can be one that is a majority codependent. What that means is that most aspects of that individual's life are governed by their codependency when it comes to their involvement with other people, and especially where they're involved with a narcissist. However, there are many empaths that are not codependent as a majority and instead exhibited as insignificant or significant, strong or very strong, with varying effects dependent upon the strength and extent of that minority aspect. If you want a particular deep dive into the codependent, you should read my book, Chained, which provides you with a remarkable level of insight into the way that the codependent is formed, behaves, and why they are lashed to the narcissist. In essence, a codependent empath finds particular validation as a consequence of their involvement with a narcissist. All empaths are addicted to narcissists. That doesn't mean that they always have to be with them. Indeed, as a consequence of my work and the practical application of information that I provide, you are able to manage that addiction. But it is particularly bad for those which are the codependent. There is a visceral urge to be with the narcissist, particularly where it is the majority aspect. The codependent actually starts off life on the path to becoming a narcissist themselves, but they don't get there, as I explain in Chained. This journey of theirs means that they are particularly affected by the necessity of being with a narcissist because it delivers so much for them as a consequence of the way that they were formed. By almost becoming one themselves, they are attracted all the more to the narcissist. The codependent exists to give again, and then to give some more. They find validation in giving, and the reason why the codependent is particularly attracted to the narcissist is that the narcissist provides the greatest level of validation for the codependent, because where the codependent wishes to give, we take. We take you in terms of making you submissive to us. We take away your freedoms and your choices. We take the fuel that pours from you. We take your character traits and make them ours. We take from you residual benefits, whether it's your friendships, your networks, perhaps money. The narcissist is a taker, the codependent is a giver. And therefore the symbiotic life between the two is one which is perfect for the narcissist and perfect for the codependent in terms of achieving the aim of giving, albeit, of course, it comes with the heavy price that is paid for being a victim of abuse. The codependent derives a sense of satisfaction from the giving of themselves, that they pour themselves into the black hole that is the narcissist, that they give of themselves, of their time, of their inclination, of their love, of their other emotions, of their assets. And the narcissist greedily feeds on all of this. All empaths feel good about giving, but none so much as the codependent, who finds definition in who they are through the act of giving. The codependent can give to anybody, but most people are not takers, not in the way that a narcissist takes. They may take to some point, but they would recognize that they're taking advantage of this individual, and because of their own emotional empathy towards the codependent empath, they would halt it and say, no, I don't need that, or you're giving away too much, or there's no need for you to go down this route. You don't need to be that people pleaser. The codependent has a slavish devotion to the narcissist, where majority finding validation in ensuring that they are with the narcissist. They commonly lurch from one relationship with a narcissist to another. It is rare that they escape. It happens, but it is never the case unless there is intervention. Ordinarily, they lack the ability to get away themselves and must rely upon others to come to their aid, not because they're lazy, not because they're self-absorbed, but quite simply the pull of the narcissist proves so difficult for them to deal with of themselves. Their codependency causes them to have the narcissist upon their mind and in their head. They crave the narcissist. They will recognize that the narcissist is no good for them, that the narcissist is hurting for them, that the narcissist abuses them, but it hurts so good that they want it. Driven by their own emotional thinking, they can understand they're being abused, but simply find themselves wanting to be with the narcissist because of this visceral urge that they have, that it is part of their twisted DNA to want to be with the narcissist, to find salvation by standing under the umbrella or the wings of that particular narcissist. That by giving of themselves, and they do not mind doing so, for they find reward in that act of giving to the one that always takes. As a consequence of the addiction, any school of narcissist is going to be drawn to the narcissist and will find the narcissist in certain instances exciting, invigorating. But take those sensations and double or triple them when it comes to the codependent, and you will have some understanding of the almost irresistible pull of the narcissist upon them. What I have explained is applicable to the majority codependent. But what about those who have codependency as a minority? Where does that sit? Well, as I mentioned, it can either be insignificant, significant, strong, or very strong. And what that means is that their codependency sits there, dormant, and may never, ever be activated. Contrasting that with the majority codependent, whose day-to-day life is governed by codependency, the things that they do, the decisions they make, the people that they interact with. Somebody who has minority codependency may never actually be affected by it. Instead, what must happen is there must be a trigger event. Dependent upon the extent and size of their minority codependency, there are certain things which will trigger a codependent response. So, for example, let us take a standard empath who is at 65%, and they have some super empath, 15%, and then 20% is codependent. Just about a significant element. Ordinarily, they may not be affected by codependency. Indeed, their majority is standard. So that is what governs their decisions. They have an addiction to the narcissist, but it's nowhere near on the level of a codependent majority. With regard to the significant minority aspect, there will be probably 3, maybe 4 potential triggers, which means if, and only if that trigger is activated, their behavior will then shift to that of codependency and no longer standard empath. Similarly, if they were a majority super empath with 25% codependency, they would ordinarily be governed by their super empathy on a day-to-day basis, save where there's the activation of a trigger. And in those circumstances, the activation of that trigger shunts them to then behave like a codependent. What are those triggers? There are many of them. But some examples would be, for instance, where the narcissist threatens to leave the codependent empath, or threatens to harm them, or engages in the implementation of physical violence, or perhaps is unfaithful, and that empath learns of it. It might be that the empath has a vulnerability with regard to, say, a particular fear, a fear of the dark. And when the narcissist uses that fear of the dark against that empath, it triggers their codependency. So their response shifts from whether it was contagion or standard or super as the majority, and they behave like a codependent empath, clinging on to the narcissist, desperate not to lose them, giving of themselves, pleading not to be hurt, instead seeking to appease, mollify, and placate the narcissist, far more than any other kind of empath would. Thus, the codependent majority has their codependency governing them on a day-to-day basis. Where there are minority aspects, they only apply in the circumstances where there is the appropriate trigger. The trigger can be activated time and time again. The triggers can change over time. Some may fade away. They may be dealt with by way of therapy, with new ones coming in. But the codependency never leaves, and the appropriate number of triggers exist so that if they are activated, that empath then responds as a codependent. This gives you some outline information about the codependent empath and their behaviours. But to learn more about them, go to the Knowledge Vault or Amazon and read Chained. If you'd like to understand what type of empath you are, to find out if you are one and what your constituent schools are, then use the empath detector. Details you'll find as to how to access that in the video description. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.